Have you ever stood in your garden in early August, surrounded by towering tomato vines and peppers beginning to ripen, and felt that quiet, bittersweet shift in the air? The sun is setting just a little earlier. The weeds are growing faster than ever. The heavy midsummer heat still hangs over everything, and somewhere inside, a voice begins to whisper that the season is slowly coming to an end. Across the country, gardeners are already putting away their trowels, cleaning their shears, and mentally checking out until spring returns. They look at the empty beds where early peas and spring lettuce finished weeks ago, then leave those spaces bare, dry, and unused. Let me say this from the heart. That single moment of surrender, that quiet choice to let the garden beds go dormant, may be the most costly and heartbreaking gardening mistake you make all year. August is not the end of your gardening journey. It is not even close. In horticulture, August is a starting line. For decades, experienced gardeners and extension horticulturists have recognized this brief window and called it the second spring. It is a magical, narrow, and deeply strategic opportunity. One of my favorite gardening mentors, Charles Dowding, has a saying I have always trusted. 1 day's growth in August is worth 2 in September, 4 in October, 8 in November, 16 in December, and half a day in July. Think about the biological power behind those words. When you plant now, you are using the remaining warmth of the summer sun to drive rapid and powerful root development. And this is where the real alchemy begins. As the days slowly grow shorter and the air steadily cools, an extraordinary biological defense mechanism awakens inside cool season plants. To keep the water within their cells from freezing solid and rupturing the cell walls, these plants begin converting stored starches into soluble sugars. In a very real sense, they are creating their own natural antifreeze. What does that mean for us? It means a fall and winter harvest that is noticeably sweeter, crunchier, and far more intensely flavorful than anything you could hope to grow in the scorching heat of mid-June. So what is the alternative? Walking past empty garden beds in November? Driving to the grocery store in the middle of January and paying outrageous prices for wilted, chemical-laden greens that were picked weeks earlier and transported thousands of miles? Why pay someone else for bland, lifeless produce when your own backyard could become a living winter refrigerator? Today, we are counting down the 12 essential crops you need to plant this month. Miss this narrow window, and I promise you will deeply regret it when the frost finally arrives. So grab your shovels, and let's uncover the beautiful, science-backed truth of the winter garden. 1. Kale, the antifreeze alchemist. Let's begin with the undisputed champion of the winter garden, kale. I know some of you may be thinking, but I don't even like kale. It's tough, stringy, and carries that bitter, metallic edge. I understand, but here is the secret. If the only kale you have tasted was harvested in summer, then you have never truly experienced what kale is meant to taste like. Summer heat puts kale under stress, leaving the leaves fibrous and bitter. But when a kale seedling planted in August matures through the cool nights of autumn and receives its first serious frost, around 28 or 29 degrees Fahrenheit, an extraordinary chemical transformation begins. Plant physiologists have documented a real cold stress response in kale, during which the leaf cells fill with soluble sugars and proline. By lowering the freezing point within the plant, these compounds act like a natural antifreeze. Almost overnight, the bitterness begins to fade. The cell walls soften, the texture turns tender and flexible, and the flavor opens into something sweet, nutty, and gently savory. For the best results, transplant healthy 4 to 6 week-old kale starts into your garden beds early in August. Give each plant at least 12 to 18 inches of space, because crowded kale quickly becomes stunted kale. As the plants grow, harvest the older leaves from the bottom first, leaving the central crown untouched so it can continue producing fresh growth. Then, when snow finally falls and covers the neighborhood in a blanket of white silence, you can step into your garden, brush away a foot of snow, and gather dark green, crisp leaves that are still alive, sweet, and filled with nutrition. That is more than gardening. It is a quiet victory over winter itself. 2. Carrots, sweet gold beneath the straw. At number 2, we have carrots. If the only carrots you have ever eaten came from a plastic supermarket bag, carrots bred to survive a long shelf life rather than deliver real flavor, then a fall-harvested carrot may taste like an entirely different vegetable. Carrots planted in late summer can produce the sweetest, most candy-like roots of the entire year. But they also bring one unusual challenge. Carrot seeds are tiny, slow to germinate, and need steady, uninterrupted moisture at the soil surface for as long as 2 weeks. In the baking heat of August, that upper layer of soil can dry within hours, cooking the delicate seeds just as they begin to open, long before they have time to establish. Here is the foolproof method our family uses to overcome the August heat. After sowing the seeds a 1/4 inch deep in loose, rock-free soil, do not simply water the row and hope for the best. Cover it directly with open weave burlap, a thin white silage tarp, or even a flat wooden board. This barrier shields the seedbed from the scorching sun and traps moisture exactly where the seeds need it most. Check beneath the cover every day. The instant you notice the first pale green, feathery threads pushing through the dark soil, remove the covering immediately so the new seedlings can reach the light. When autumn cold begins to settle in, cover your carrot rows with 8 to 10 inches of clean straw. This thick, insulating blanket keeps the ground beneath it soft and unfrozen. Even in the middle of January, you can step outside with a digging fork, ease it into the loose earth beneath the straw, and pull up fresh, crisp, sugar-sweet carrots. It is a humbling experience and a beautiful reminder of how much abundance the earth can preserve beneath one simple layer of straw. 3. Spinach, the sub-zero survivor. Our third winter essential is spinach. Many gardeners still think of spinach as a spring-only crop. They plant it in April, then watch it panic, and bolt the moment the first warm days of June arrive, leaving behind bitter leaves that are hardly worth harvesting. But August is the true sweet spot for spinach. There is only one major biological obstacle to overcome: thermo-inhibition. Spinach comes from cool climates, and its seeds carry a genetic chemical switch that can completely suppress germination when soil temperatures climb above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Sow those seeds directly into hot August soil, and they may simply remain there until they rot. To get around this problem, we use a simple process called cold stratification. Begin by soaking the spinach seeds in cool water for 12 to 24 hours. Drain them, wrap them in a damp paper towel, place them inside a sealed Ziploc bag, and keep them in the refrigerator at 37 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 to 7 days. This process tricks the seeds into believing winter has already passed. Their seed coats begin to split, and tiny root radicals start to emerge. Plant these pre-sprouted seeds gently into the garden at dusk, keep the soil consistently moist, and they can anchor themselves in as little as 48 hours. Once spinach is established, it becomes almost indestructible. Even without protection, it can survive air temperatures falling to 15 degrees Fahrenheit without showing a single blemish. Add the simple shelter of a low hoop tunnel or cold frame, and one bed of spinach sown in August can provide fresh, sweet salad leaves for 6 to 8 continuous months. 4. Beets, the two-in-one treasure. At number 4 is one of the most efficient, double-yielding crops you can grow: beets. Beets are remarkable because a single seed gives you 2 completely different, nutrient-dense harvests. You receive the sweet, earthy roots, of course, but you also harvest the mineral-rich greens. Gram for gram, beet greens are even more nutrient-dense than the roots, filled with iron and powerful betalain pigments. The key to successful August beets is timing. Leafy greens can continue growing with relatively limited sunlight, but the swelling of the beetroot depends on a specialized storage structure called the hypocotyl. This physiological process requires a strong supply of solar radiation. Plant too late, such as in September, and the shortening days may prevent the roots from swelling at all. You may end up with beautiful greens, but no actual beets. To harvest those plump, sweet globes, sow the seeds early in August, at least 8 weeks before your first expected frost. There is another important detail to remember. What looks like one beet seed is actually a small, corky cluster holding 2 or 3 viable seeds. When they germinate, several seedlings often emerge tightly packed together. You must thin them firmly until the remaining plants stand 3 to 4 inches apart. Pulling healthy seedlings can feel painful, but never throw them away. Those tender baby beet greens are delicious in a late summer salad. 5. Radishes. The 26-day quick win number 5 is the fastest, easiest, and most immediately rewarding crop on this list: the humble radish. If you are worried that time is running out, or you are a beginner looking for a dependable, low-maintenance success, this is the crop for you. A radish can travel from a dry seed in your hand to a crisp, peppery bulb on your plate in as little as 26 days. But here is something many gardeners never realize. A radish planted in August can taste dramatically better than one planted in spring. During spring, quickly rising temperatures and sudden late May heat waves place the plants under stress. The roots become filled with sharp, bitter compounds and can turn woody, hollow, and unpleasantly hot. Plant in August, and the process reverses. The soil remains warm enough for rapid germination, but while the roots are swelling, the surrounding air is gradually cooling. That slow transition concentrates the natural sugars, creating radishes that are crisp, juicy, and beautifully mild. August also gives you the rare opportunity to grow two very different kinds of radishes. You can sow fast summer varieties, such as the long red and white French breakfast, while also planting magnificent winter types, like the giant Japanese daikon or the hardy Spanish black round. Winter radishes grow much larger, keep beautifully for months when stored in damp sand, and provide a valuable source of fresh crunch far into the coldest part of winter. 6. Bok Choy, the stir-fry king with a cellular crunch. At number 6 is the succulent, fast-growing star of the Asian greens family, Bok Choy. In the food industry, marketers spend millions trying to recreate one irresistible sensation in processed snacks, crunch. But nature perfected that experience centuries ago in the thick, juicy white stems of Bok Choy. Bok Choy's remarkable speed and crisp texture come from its unique water-storing petioles, the sturdy, celery-like leaf stems that serve as internal reservoirs. This built-in water supply allows the plant to grow at an astonishing rate, often reaching baby harvest size in only 6 weeks after transplanting. Biochemically, Bok Choy is exceptionally rich in glucosinolates. When you bite into a raw stem or quickly sear it in a hot stir-fry, these compounds break down into isothiocyanates, the same life-supporting, health-promoting molecules studied by scientists in advanced oncology research. But Bok Choy also has a temperamental side that every gardener must understand. If newly sprouted seedlings are exposed to temperatures below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or to daylight lasting more than 16 hours during their first month, they can undergo irreversible vernalization and immediately bolt into flower. That is exactly why August is the perfect planting window. The soil remains warm enough for the roots to establish safely, while the days naturally become shorter as the plants grow. Set them in rich soil amended with compost, maintain steady moisture so the stems do not become woody, and enjoy a continuous harvest of some of the most tender, high-quality stir-fry greens you have ever tasted. 7. Swiss Chard, the unstoppable biennial rainbow. Number 7 is a plant that simply refuses to give up, Swiss Chard. If you want a vegetable that is forgiving, visually spectacular, and capable of feeding your family for months, this is the one. Swiss chard is a close relative of the beet, and its leaves contain a similar amount of oxalic acid, which gives them that deep, earthy, mineral-rich flavor that responds beautifully to sautéing. Structurally, however, chard is a biennial. That one botanical fact completely changes the value this plant can bring to your garden. When you plant chard in August, it spends its first season developing a strong, deep root system while producing huge, glossy leaves that can easily tolerate the early frosts of autumn. Because of this growth habit, chard is perfect for the cut-and-come-again harvesting method. Never pull out the entire plant. Instead, use a sharp knife to slice away the mature outer stalks directly at the base. This avoids damaging the crown and allows the center of the plant to keep producing fresh, tender new leaves. But the true magic of chard appears after winter arrives. In Zone 6 and above, protect the crowns with a simple layer of straw or a row cover, and the roots can survive the deep freeze. Then, in March or April, long before you have planted your first spring seed, those established roots will awaken and send up enormous leaves as wide as dinner plates. A single $2 packet of seed, planted in August, can provide nearly an entire year of continuous, colorful nutrition. 8. Hakurei turnips, the sweet revolution. Our 8th crop is one that completely transforms the opinion of nearly everyone who grows it, the Hakurei turnip. I know exactly what you may be imagining. You are probably picturing those enormous, bitter, purple-topped bowling balls that appeared on the Thanksgiving table and tasted more like punishment than food. Forget that image entirely. The Hakurei turnip, often known as the Japanese salad turnip, was developed in Japan during the 1950s by the Tokita Seed Company in Saitama, at a time of severe post-war food scarcity. They created a root that is small, smooth, pure white, and so sweet and delicate that it can be eaten raw, skin and all, straight from the soil. Its flavor is mild, buttery, and crisp, with a texture somewhere between a juicy apple and a gentle radish. Hakurei turnips grow incredibly quickly, reaching maturity only 35 to 55 days after sowing. But they come with one essential rule: they must be sown directly, and their moisture level must remain strictly consistent. Because the roots expand so rapidly at the cellular level, soil that dries out and is then suddenly soaked by heavy rain or flooding can cause them to split violently, becoming fibrous, woody, and bitter. Keep the water supply steady, thin the seedlings early, and you will harvest a sweet, gourmet treat, so delicate that your neighbors may refuse to believe it is really a turnip. 9. Broccoli, the hormonal masterclass. At number 9, we have broccoli. Most home gardeners struggle when they plant broccoli in spring. The plants may grow beautifully at first, only for a sudden heat wave in May to place them under stress. Before the gardener has a chance to harvest, the tight central head loosens and bolts into bitter yellow flowers. Planting in August solves this seasonal mismatch by working with the plant's natural hormonal system. Broccoli head formation is controlled by a physiological process known as apical dominance, in which the plant's hormones direct nearly all of its energy toward one strong central bud. Cool autumn nights help accelerate and stabilize that hormonal signal. As temperatures steadily decline, the head develops slowly, forming a tight, dense, remarkably sweet cluster of nutrient-rich florets. For success, plant established broccoli transplants this month rather than starting with seed. A tiny seedling sown directly into the scorching August soil can quickly stall and become stunted. Instead, place a sturdy 4 to 5 week old transplant into the ground and allow it to build its large leafy structure in the remaining warmth of late summer. When the main head is ready, cut the stem at a slight angle about 1 inch below the crown. This angled cut keeps water from collecting inside the flat, hollow stem, helping protect the plant from rot, while encouraging it to produce dozens of tender, flavorful side shoots for many more weeks. 10. Cauliflower, the autumn masterpiece. Number 10 is the temperamental relative of the brassica family, cauliflower. Cauliflower is famously demanding. It dislikes sudden changes in temperature, periods of dry soil, and intense heat. Any of these stresses can cause the plant to button, producing a tiny, premature, useless head no larger than a coin. Growing cauliflower in spring is often a constant gamble. In autumn, however, it can become a true masterpiece. The gradual, steady transition from late summer warmth into the cool weeks of fall creates precisely the stable, stress-free environment that cauliflower needs. Like broccoli, cauliflower should enter the August garden as a strong, established transplant. Prepare the soil deeply with high-quality compost, because cauliflower is a heavy feeder that requires rich organic matter and a dependable supply of moisture. As the white head begins to develop, gently fold the outer leaves over the curd to shield it from direct sunlight. This protection keeps the head pure white and exceptionally mild. When you finally harvest a fall-grown cauliflower sweetened by the cool air, you will understand why this vegetable is considered the ultimate test of a skilled kitchen gardener. 11. Green onions, the infinite loop. At number 11 is the most efficient, space-saving, and economically sensible crop on our entire list, green onions. They grow remarkably fast, tolerate difficult conditions, and remain largely undisturbed by the pests that begin disappearing as late summer moves forward. But here is the ultimate gardening trick that almost no one uses to its full potential. You do not even need to purchase seeds to begin your winter onion patch. The next time you bring home a bunch of green onions from the grocery store, cook with the green tops, but keep the lower white sections with their roots still attached. Plant those rooted ends directly into a container filled with damp potting soil, or place them into your raised garden beds. Within only a few days, they will settle into the soil and begin sending up fresh, vibrant green shoots. When it is time to harvest, never pull the whole plant from the ground. Instead, Take a pair of scissors and cut the green tops about 1 inch above the soil surface. The white base will remain safely in place and continue producing a fresh crop of green onions again and again, month after month. It becomes an endless, self-renewing supply of fresh, savory flavor growing right outside your back door, and it costs you absolutely nothing. 12. Garlic, the long-game masterpiece. And finally, at number 12, we reach the ultimate long-term masterpiece of the kitchen garden, garlic. Garlic follows a completely different biological schedule from every other crop we have discussed today. You are not planting it now for an immediate autumn harvest. You are planting it to prepare for a surge of growth next spring and an enormous harvest of large bulbs the following summer. To grow garlic successfully, you need to understand an essential biological process called vernalization. Garlic cloves require a long period of exposure to cold, moist winter conditions beneath the soil, usually temperatures below 40 degrees Fahrenheit for several weeks. That prolonged cold triggers a hormonal response inside each clove. This signal tells the plant to divide its single bulb into a cluster of separate, clearly formed cloves when growth resumes in spring. If garlic is planted in spring without receiving this cold winter exposure, it may produce only one round, onion-like bulb instead of dividing into individual cloves. Begin by separating a high-quality organic garlic bulb into individual cloves while leaving the papery skin intact. Select only the largest and plumpest cloves for planting, because the size of the clove directly influences the size of the finished bulb. Place each clove with the pointed end facing upward, bury it about 2 to 3 inches deep, and leave 5 to 6 inches between plants in well-draining soil enriched with compost. After planting, cover the bed with a generous 3 to 4 inch layer of shredded leaves or straw mulch. This protective covering shields the soil from severe temperature fluctuations. Throughout autumn, the cloves will quietly develop a powerful underground root system. They will become completely dormant during the freezing winter, then burst from the soil the following spring and eventually reward you with the most flavorful, aromatic garlic you have ever tasted. Your winter legacy. Take a moment to think about what this truly means. Every crop we have counted down today represents a small but powerful act of self-reliance. For the price of only a few packets of seed, perhaps $10 or $15, you can turn your backyard from a silent, dormant, wasted space into a thriving, living pantry that continues feeding you through winter. Imagine stepping into your garden in November, December, or even January with a harvest basket in your hands. While your neighbors scrape frost from their car windshields before driving to the grocery store, you will be standing in your own yard gathering candy-sweet carrots, crisp kale kissed by frost, tender spinach, and vibrant green onions. You do not need acres of land, and you do not need decades of gardening experience. You only need to recognize that August is not the end of the gardening year. It is the beginning of its most rewarding, flavorful, and beautiful second half. But remember, this planting window is brief, and the clock is already ticking. Once the soil becomes cold and daylight falls below 10 hours, the opportunity closes again for another entire year. So what are you waiting for? Let's put our hands into the soil. Visit your local nursery, bring out your seed packets, prepare the beds with compost, and start planting your winter legacy today. If this video has inspired you to keep your garden productive, hit the subscribe button here at Earthly Delights. Share your growing zone in the comments and tell me which of these 12 crops you plan to put into the ground first. Until next time, plant once, plant well, and allow your garden to quietly nourish you throughout the entire year. Happy gardening!